From Nashville, this is William Henry. This is Dreamland. Welcome, everyone. Our guest today, James Gilliland, is an author, teacher, ufologist, spiritual counselor, energetic healer, and the founder of the Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence Organization, or ESETI for short. James says his sanctuary near Mount Adams in Trout Lake, Washington, just north of Portland, is at an opening to a dimensional portal where extraterrestrial ships travel to and from Earth almost nightly. It's a gathering place. Think Men in Black 2 meets Stargate. His evidence is overwhelming. The photos, over 11 hours of video, hundreds of eyewitnesses, including astrophysicists, scientists, aeronautic engineers, Air Force, commercial, and private pilots, and employees in the aviation industry. In other words, those who know what they're looking at in the friendly skies have witnessed UFOs, unidentified flying objects at James's ranch. Just go to YouTube and type in ECETI, and you'll see a whole bunch of this footage. I've been to James's ranch, and I've seen the ships, and I've independently encountered the phenomena called the bliss hit, possibly a pulse from one of those ships. And I know that as dazzling as my experience was to me, it's nothing compared to what others have experienced. And you're invited to visit any time you like, and I encourage you to go there for yourself to check it out. Till then, get a copy of the newly released DVD, Contact Has Begun, produced by Michael Knight. It tells James Gilliland's story with quality, heart, and depth, and it's available at contacthasbegun.com or eceti.org. Here today to talk with us about Contact and his role in it and the latest amazing goings-on at his ranch is James Gilliland. James, welcome to Dreamland.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, really glad you're here. James, there's so much to talk about. I'd like to begin first by giving you props for what you've accomplished at your ranch, the Sattva Sanctuary. It's truly an oasis in the stars.
Oh, thank you.
And I know
I'm glad you had a chance to experience it. Now you can do an interview from a experiential basis versus just, talking off the cuff,
Yeah, exactly. And talking about, having experience in some of these things. Like you, I invite people to my hometown of Nashville, and when I have an event like what happens at your place, people come from, 16, 19, 20 states or more. And it's a happening. And I show people why I think Nashville is another portal on the stairway to heaven. Like we've got copies of 2 healing temples from the ancient world here, the Parthenon, and a place I call Stargate Park. And when I take people there, they get something like the bliss hit at your place. And so when I came to your ranch on the 4th of July, I saw a lot of myself and what I was trying to do in Nashville with what you're doing there. And you're proud of your home, your family's involved, and they're all very cool, incredible people. And you're really about sharing an extraordinary experience with people and awakening them. And just one comment, I had a person tell me once that Nashville is a portal because I made it so. And I really like that word made because that's a police term for identify. I identified what's going on in Nashville, and similarly, you've made or identified something incredible about your home near Mount Adams. And so on this police term theme, let's talk first, if you don't mind, James, about those 11-plus hours of video that you have of these ships over your ranch. Tell us about what is in that footage.
I think there's at least 11 hours up on YouTube or more, but we actually have hundreds of hours of footage. And
let's just stop just for a second, James. Hundreds of hours of footage. What's the duration, the typical duration of a typical ship flying by that you have footage of?
Sometimes we only have just probably, the count of 10 to get one. When they come in and they power up and they sit there for a minute and then take off, zip off, we only have a matter of maybe 10 seconds to get some of those, the really big ones. But the other ones we have going from horizon to horizon, and, some do it very slowly and some do it so fast that we've had, mathematicians figure it out as close as they can get. And these things are moving, 750,000 miles an hour plus.
Incredible.
So, our fastest satellites are going around 18 to 20-something thousand miles an hour, and these things are so far beyond anything that is known, you might say. So they definitely fall in the unknown or the UFO category.
So when you're talking hundreds of hours of video of events that last anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute, you've got thousands of separate events that you've documented.
Oh, yeah. We have landings that were 45-minute events where they actually landed on the mountain and morphed into 3 to 4 ships and then back to one again. And we had that happen on several occasions. And
you have that on tape, too.
Yeah. Above Top Secret just came here, and they did a major investigation, and they actually brought Robbie Williams with them.
Now, who's Above Top Secret?
Now, that's another group. They're an investigative group. And
skeptical, or are they traditionally open-minded about it?
Well, actually, they are very, you might say, critical, and very critical of a lot of the places and a lot of the claims being made by others. So they're extremely discerning, and actually Johnny was one of the biggest debunkers of orbs out there until he came to the ranch, and now he's a major proponent of them because we have the orbs on video actually interacting with people. Undeniable footage. These things are flying against the wind. They're making changes, stopping, hovering over groups, and we just put up some miraculous footage recently. We have more now where we had a bunch of kids out in the field just laughing, having a good time, and just, orbs are coming everywhere, and they come flying by, and they're these beautiful light spheres, and they're coming in every color imaginable, and they're definitely not dust particles or flour thrown up in the air or anything else. You can see these objects are interacting with people. They're flying against the wind. There's no possible way they could be any kind of a dust particle. And on top of that, we're filming them in basements that haven't even been open for who knows how long. They've been closed up for weeks, and you open it up and go down there and meditate for a minute, take a picture, and you have these beautiful blue orbs with faces in them, sitting right on your shoulder. So that, between that and them flying through trees with shadows of the branches on the orbs shows that they have some substance, but they have the ability to move right through walls and through metal beams and cement basement walls and through trees, and it's just amazing. We watch them come from way up in space, come all the way down and go right through the earth.
Incredible. I want to talk more about the orbs, and especially in connection with your good friend Dr. Michal Ledwith in a later segment. But let's just kind of get back to what it's like, what it must have been like for Johnny Anonymous from Above Top Secret to come to the ranch. I mean, you go out into the field behind your home. You're about 17 miles from Mount Adams. This area, I mean, as you tell us when we arrive, the presence of UFOs in this part of Washington State stretches back to ancient history. Talk about that for a moment.
Oh, it does. The Native Americans have a lot of legends about a group. There's a crystalline city underneath the mountain where some very advanced human beings that look, just like us. You wouldn't tell any difference between them and us, other than at night their eyes actually glow. Wow. They have a light coming out of their eyes, but there's a long history of them taking their sick or their elderly or their wounded up there to this area. They would meet with the people. They would take them into the interior, and they would come out, a day or two later with completely mended bones and healed. So there was an ongoing opening there for quite some time, and then they had to close that down because we were getting way too aggressive and primitive, and our technology was going far beyond our spirituality. So they broke that off. But Kenneth Arnold actually coined the word flying saucers, and he lost sight of the ships when they descended on the western slopes of Mount Adams, which is actually 13 miles away from us.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, but it's right in our front yard, as you've seen. And
Kenneth Arnold first saw the flying discs over Mount Rainier and followed them to nearby Mount Adams, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared. They landed on the western slopes or went down on the western slopes, and then he lost them, which is our front yard. That's right where we're looking. But there's a long history of tribal police, regular police, forest rangers, the fire tower spotters, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, did an investigation here. David Akers, Bill Vogel, Greg Long wrote a book, examining the Earth light theory. They're all trying to say, some of them are trying to say these are just Earth lights or piezoelectric, discharges. And, these are definitely not Earth lights because they're intelligent. They interact with people. They've seen beings. They've had very tall beings appear to people, just about everything. is going on up there, and so there's no way you could dismiss this as just a basic natural Earth-light phenomena.
No, and it's reminiscent. I was recently in Scotland. I went to another crystal mountain called Schiehallion, where the local history and the local legend says that this is an inner Earth opening, and it seems there are many places around this planet that share this common theme, and the commonality of it, and the extraordinary accomplishments of the people that are said to live there, the abilities. They're always said to be an advanced race with healing abilities, that the mountain is a connection to either an inner Earth world or perhaps a portal to other dimensions. It just seems that our planet has many of these locations, and you seem to be sort of the custodian of one of them.
Yeah, it seems that way. And what's really sad, too, is we could have that same experience here on the Earth. We have incredible healing technologies right now. We have fuelless energy on the planet. We could totally restore the planet and end disease and make all this available. But, unfortunately, we have, the leadership of this planet is pretty whacked out, to say it lightly. We've got
that's
the war
being quite polite, yeah.
Yeah, we have the war industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the oil industry running things right now, and they're totally against fuelless energy and the end of disease and peace. Basically. So all of the things that are necessary, for a healthy society and environment are being hijacked by just a small group of people, and until people wake up to that fact, we won't be able to join the rest of the universe in peace and end disease and have the clean environment. And that's the main mission, is to let people know they actually do have a choice.
James, we're up against our first break. When we come back, I want to talk for a moment about how you were drawn to Mount Adams. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We'll be right back.
This is a special announcement. I don't want anyone to miss next week's Dreamland, because we're doing a Dreamland on the economy, and there isn't anyone in the world who can do it like we do it. It's going to be a mix of the edge and the very, very solid center. What we're going to be doing is, first, John Hogue, who predicted all of this back in January in his usual extraordinary way, is going to be back with us, and it is incredibly exciting stuff. Linda Moulton Howe will have Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal. The last time Gerald Celente was on this radio program in 2007, he nailed it. What does he say now? And for our subscribers, we've got something incredibly special. I have managed to get one of the world's leading experts on all of these things. You've never heard his name. He is Jay Westbrook, Professor Jay Westbrook, the Benno C. Schmidt Professor of Law at the University of Texas. I found out he is literally one of the leading experts on this. He's just finished testifying before the House Ways and Means Committee. And he's a real insider. He's going to give us an inside look at what is actually going on right now, the kind of look that congressmen get behind closed doors from those guys you never hear about in the media. So it should be an extraordinary week next week on Dreamland. Don't miss a single word.
This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We're continuing with James Gilliland. James, you talk about how in Contact Has Begun, how your first close encounter with a ship didn't occur until after 10 years of living at your sanctuary near Mount Adams. Talk about how this unfolded for you.
Well, it unfolded in the beginning. I had a near-death experience and went through the tunnel that everybody talks about and ended up in this golden plane of bliss. And then that started an intense journey of...
How old were you when you had your near-death experience?
I was around 25. And so that was just an intense journey after that. And I studied with, Tibetan lamas and yogis and took quite a few years of yoga. And I studied every process-oriented therapy you could imagine, knowing that that's what keeps us from reconnecting, with the God within. So I was on a very intense spiritual journey and building a spiritual retreat center, and my focus was not at all on UFOs or the the ETs at all. I was on a very intense spiritual journey, and so we've had about 22 years here of intense meditation work, process-oriented therapies going on here, inner sensitivity training classes, and that opened the door to contact. And about 10 years or so into that, the other entities started, showing up, and I found out that they were, extremely spiritually advanced beings, and they've been waiting for us to rise to the occasion.
James, in Contact Has Begun, which is just a phenomenal presentation about your story and the place there. Michael Knight, he is kind of a knight. I met him when I was up there at your place. Super nice guy. You talk about this experience you had in which 3 gold orbs suddenly manifested on your body. Talk about that experience. That was amazing.
Yeah, what happened is the first contacts were a lot more subtle, and they were telepathic in nature, and then they started showing their ships to me and gradually indoctrinated me to the fact that there were extremely benevolent, very spiritually advanced beings out there, wanting to help humanity. And I was in the bathroom, actually I was in the bathtub, and I was meditating, and I said, I'm really tired of seeing all the ships flying around and the telepathic messages and things like that. I really want, evidence. I want proof that this is a real event. This isn't just something happening on some other level, and I really want to know what my connection to this, what my purpose is in all this. And the next thing you know, this beam came right through the wall, a golden beam of energy, and then 3 balls of energy came down the beam and hit me in the chest. And the next thing I know, I was basically pulled right out of my body onto a ship, which was a non-physical ship. It was more of a plasma energy or a pure energy ship.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a female there that I stood before, and I had a conversation with her. And what she told me was, that the first thing I asked, she had almost looked like a bathing cap type thing, a headdress on her head, but it was made out of a different type of material. And she had gold bars suspended over her head. And I asked her what the headdress was for and the gold bars that weren't attached. They were just floating there. They weren't even quite physical. And she said that this is a spiritual technology, that it's what we use to initiate people, to wake people up and remind them, of who they are and why they came. And then I told her, I said, I really want to know. And she said, everything you need to know has been returned to you. And so the gold balls of energy had all of my soul memories from everywhere I've been and experienced, on the planet. And then I just had a rapid fire, 3 to 5 seconds, where I'd experienced every soul and every experience that I've done and get the full imprint of it. It was pretty amazing. And then the third thing I asked her was, I want proof, this is physical, this is a real-time event. And she said, you have all the proof you need. And she said, you need to go now. And the next thing you know, it's back in the body. And she explained to me later that I can't stay there too long because I'd be useless down here. I wouldn't want to be here at all. And I wouldn't be able to function if I stayed too much longer.
Right.
So she and then told me that basically the proof was that I had this incredible burn mark right in the middle of my chest, which was totally painless, but it left a big mark there, and I have photographs on the website of it. And I had a doctor look at it, and he said, that looks like a radiation burn. He asked me if I was experiencing any nausea or getting sick or anything. I said, no side effects whatsoever. And it morphed from a circle to a triangle, and then it looked like a heart. And then it just disappeared. This gold film came over it, and it just left and went away.
When I saw that in your DVD, I just got up out of my chair and started pacing around with excitement, because I follow this line of thinking that this is sort of a matrix type of reality, and that we're in a dream world, we're in an illusion, and that some signs and symbols are out here all the time attempting to wake us up. And one of the key symbol that I've ever found in all 20 years of studying the myths and legends of ascension and these other realms and these beings, is that their primary symbol, the one you most want to follow, is 3 gold orbs, 3 rays, 3 rings, 3 stars like we have in the Court of 3 Stars here in Nashville, or 3 circles of perfection. They're all interchangeable. And for example, the Druids used the 3 rays as their symbol for awakening and for enlightenment. And it was, of course, the Druids that were there at Schiehallion, the Crystal Mountain in Scotland, that is so reminiscent of what's going on there at Mount Adams. So when you give us a story like that and share that experience with us, it tells me this is an authentic experience. This is the real deal.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue and dismiss it when you get up in the morning. You got this big burn mark every morning in the middle of your chest. So there is and that was what I needed, because I am kind of a show-me person. I have an open mind, but I really want the evidence. I want to see the proof that this is a real-time event.
Right. And so all of these experiences then tuned you into what I guess you refer to as the interdimensional mind.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, basically, a lot of people are running around here, and we just think we're a body and we're a personality, and that's all we are. And, we're born into this world, and we start identifying with the body, and we build a personality while we're here. But actually, we're an eternal soul that's been around forever. And we also have higher aspects than that to us, because we're multidimensional beings. So, although we have a physical body, a mental and emotional body, we also have an astral body that has all of our life experiences in it. We have an etheric body, which is our perfect incarnation. Some people call it the blue body. And that's where the real healing comes from, when you get the other stuff out of the way and align with that. But there's bodies even above that people talk about, and everybody has a different name for them. But if you follow the light spectrum, it's the best way to understand them, because you have, a Hertzian level. This is our physical body. And then I believe after that is, you've got like visible light and infrared and ultraviolet and gamma and X-ray and on to the void. But each one of these levels or dimensions, you might say, are inhabited. And, there's beings that have physical bodies, there's beings that have energy bodies, there's beings that have magnetized light bodies, and some beings are just pure consciousness. And they have ships that are Merkaba ships that are pure consciousness. They have magnetized light ships and ships that are pure energy, and they have the basic, ships that are metal. A lot of the basic metal ships are ours, our back-engineered model.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories in Contact Has Begun involves the military jets that come in and chase the UFOs at your ranch. Tell us that story.
That we have that on evidence. We had just pretty much an ongoing thing of helicopters flying at treetop level, flying around the ranch, shaking the house up and things, and kind of doing an intimidation run. And it was getting kind of ridiculous, so I started filming it and then putting it up on the net, and that kind of ended that. But, because that's the one thing, is they want to stay undercover, and they want to, kind of intimidate a little bit and harass, but they don't want to be exposed. They want to do it all, in the shadows. So once you bring everything out into the light, that usually ends. But so we started just filming some black F-15s, no markings on them, coming and shaking the house up. We've had Marine, I think they're warthogs, come by and tilt their wings and show us that they're fully armed. But you think about that, it's going to be really hard to explain. Yesterday one of our Air Force planes accidentally blew up a sanctuary.
Right.
That would be a tough one for them to explain. So they're probably not going to do that, just due to the fact that that would be just an accident that I don't think anybody would buy.
Well, and it's a military adage that whoever controls the skies of the planet controls the planet. And you can tell how these jets come in and chase the UFOs, and the UFO just goes blip, and then there goes the jet making its very long roundabout turn, coming back, chasing the UFO again, blip. It just kind of, what do? Blip out or jump, or what do?
Yeah, they do that. They can, we've seen them, going several thousand miles an hour and making right-angle turns. Mm-hmm. And, we've had Boeing engineers. Some of them are triple PhD Boeing engineers and Skunk Works people that have seen these ships, and they said, we don't know who's on these ships, but they're not ours, just because of what they can do. When you see one ship can morph into 3 and back into 1 again, that's some pretty incredible physics.
Yeah.
And display of technology is far beyond anything that we can imagine.
Yeah, you're pretty much not running on fossil fuel when you can make 90-degree turns in midair like that.
And they're doing turns that would kill any pilot. I mean, when you're going that fast, and one Boeing engineer, we have him up on the site, actually watched the ship come in at treetop level, and then it made 2 elevation jumps just instantly. And he was watching this, and he says, we don't have anything that can jump like that and do these jumps without taking out the pilot, basically. He said that's just impossible. But when you really understand the higher physics about this, it is possible because they're just like their own planets. Our planet is spinning at, I think, 1,000 miles an hour and going, I don't know how many thousands of miles through space right now, and our whole solar system is moving, but we don't even know it's happening because of the gravitational fields around the planet. And it's just kind of the same thing with them. They have their own gravitational fields, and they don't feel the inertia.
James, we got to take another quick break. When we come back, let's talk about what's dazzle duty and powering up. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We'll be right back. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We're continuing with James Gilliland. Visit his site, eceti.org, for some of the incredible footage we're talking about. James, when we were at the ranch there, your 4th of July weekend, and by the way, thanks again for including me in that event. That was really incredible.
Oh, you're welcome anytime to come back out.
Thank you. We all gathered that evening. We brought out lawn chairs. People wrapped themselves in blankets. A couple people drinking wine. We're just kind of having it. I described it on my blog as like a sporting event, where you got kind of some skeptical people saying it's just satellites. Then you got the rest, the believers, who are cheering, saying, "Come on, show yourself, show yourself." And then when it gets dark, all of a sudden everybody's starting to chant, "Power up, power up." Tell us in your words what's that all about?
Well, what the ships do is that we have a joke about it. We call it dazzle duty. And they come in, and we usually know which ones are going to do it because there's a link. There's an energetic link between you and the ship. And that's something you experienced while you were here as well, if you want to talk about that. But when they're ships and when they're satellites because you feel them. And when they come in, and, when they power up, they just get huge, and they light up, and they get enormous and fly by, and then they usually pulse the people in the field, and those who are sensitive really feel it. And you feel this pulse just go right through you, and it's like a hello, we're here.
The bliss hit.
Yeah, and people get really giddy around it. That's why everybody's having fun out there, because the energy is really high. It's that bliss hit, and everybody gets really giddy. And it's just a wonderful experience. There's nothing to fear here that's been going on here. We don't have any of the negative experiences, and I think the benevolent ones, because of their presence here, are keeping that away.
Of course, I've known you, James, for over 10 years. We've been co-presenters at various UFO conferences in that, and I've been interested in the metallic craft for a long time, going back to, I remember seeing a Randy Winters video about Billy Meyer in like 1990, and it really altered my thinking in a big way. Read a lot of the Sitchin work, of course, in that. But the thing that really got me about your presentation, and Contact Has Begun, and the thing that you're encountering there, is that the experience isn't simply limited to metallic craft. You can see those all night long, but there is a whole nother group of craft there that you describe as organic or biological. Tell us about that aspect of it.
Yeah, some of the craft are actually alive. And there's a symbiotic relationship with the people on board and the craft itself. And it has to be, because just as we can ascend our own physical bodies here, the ships have that built into them. So they need to be organic to actually move up to these other really high dimensions, which they're traversing, and to be able to jump here and there. I tell people the greatest ship you'll ever experience is the one, this two-legged one we're on right now, because once we evolve it, we don't even need a ship anymore. We can just bilocate or do a lot of the things the yogis have been doing for years.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you talk about, I call it the light body effect. It's when the yogi can accelerate the atoms of his body, the vibrational frequency of his body, into a vortex of pure energy, and then just travel, blip.
Yeah.
I once was presenting a lot of my wormhole research to a group, and a couple with PhDs from the Harvard Divinity School came up to me afterward and told me that what I was answering for them is what the Tibetans never did or would answer, which is after these yogis achieve the rainbow body, the light body, the Merkaba, this organic vehicle, this spaceship, what do they do? And what they said, my work answered for them, is that it looks like they open wormholes and just travel throughout the galaxy. The Tibetans have familiarity with over 28 different solar systems. And what you talk about in your place there is familiarity with groups from Orion, from the Pleiades, from elsewhere. That's why I say this is like Men in Black 2 that had that that sort of way station or passport control kind of place.
You know, it is. We have so many different groups coming here, and the most of the ones there's an old saying, the mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are looking at a lot of the darkness and the other stuff, I mean, it is out there. There are low-level contacts going on and you know, back-engineered projects and rogue elements, you know, with their own government. I mean, that's going on, but we mainly focus on the more benevolent, you know, the higher beings, and so we're drawing that experience here. And the beings that we're connected to are extremely, very spiritually and technologically advanced beings. They care deeply for humanity. They see us as, you know, part of the family of man, and they're part of the greater family of man. So, you know, they would really like to help, but they know that they can't do everything for us. They can guide us, they can assist us in a lot of different ways, but they can't interfere in our soul evolution. So we gain the wisdom through experience, and we're creating all kinds of experiences down here, and they understand that, and that we are eternal souls, and they're helping us as much as they can, but they have their own universal laws which they have to adhere to, and one of them is not to interfere with the evolutionary process. You know, but if we initiate it and we say, look, we want help as a planet, we want to make these changes, we want to go forward, that takes the gloves off, and then they can come in more and more and help us to, you know, evolve and start living a life in harmony with each other, you know, in a wholesome environment on a healthy planet.
A friend of yours is Dr. Michal Ledwith, a former advisor to the Pope. He's
yes.
An advisor up there at Ramtha's place in Yelm, teacher, world-renowned teacher, thanks to What the Bleep, he's a bleeper, says in your presentation, or a presentation at the ranch there, that it's not up to extraterrestrials to lower their frequency to reach our state. It's up to us to raise our frequency to where they are. So how do we do this, James?
Yeah, exactly. He's a great man. He's just wonderful just to be in his presence, you know, and the one-liners or two-liners he comes up with have such an impact on people. And, you know, it is true. And, you know, basically, it's pretty simple, is all thought has a frequency. And our attitudes and emotions have a frequency attached to them. And, you know, we have fear.
Thought and emotion affects DNA.
Exactly, and we have fear and guilt and unworthiness and all these old wrong conclusions from past experiences that are actually holding us down, which we have to get in there and clear and release and let go. And, you know, there's many techniques in doing this. You know, the most thorough one is just to make your own personal God connection, which is the big eraser, you know, and do your time in meditation and just become aware that, you know, become the observer and observe yourself and watch if you're reacting or if you're creating the world you want to experience. And most people are in that reactionary mind where they're just reacting to everything the world dishes out to them, and a lot of people are playing the victim role, or they're on that victim, you know, persecutor, savior triangle, spinning that one over and over again. But you have to step out of that and become the observer and just you know, start clearing up, you know, releasing the past, which is what the benevolent ETs say over and over again, is they're here to assist us to release the past, because our past is creating our tomorrow, and we're just carrying so much baggage, you know, and, you know, it's like the new FAA rules, you know, you can only take so many pounds on the plane.
Yeah, 3 ounces, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same way now. You know, it's the same way. You can only take so many, you can only take so much luggage. You know, and basically you need to really get rid of all the luggage if you're going to experience the higher dimensions.
Well, and that was the thing about Contact Has Begun. Again, when I was looking into various myths and legends of these beings of humans who had transformed themselves or transfigured themselves into biological craft. Jesus is a good example in his transfiguration and was able then to toggle back and forth between the worlds. Ahura Mazda had the ring of cosmic power, which is a ring or a Merkaba vehicle. And then when you go over to the Mahabharata, they talk about a similar craft where the gods see chariots by the thousands out in space, and they shine by their own light, as the description says. And what we're told in the Mahabharata, I'll get it right, that these lights, some of the lights that we see as stars, which are reminiscent of the craft at your place, are these perfected beings, self-awakened humans who have transformed themselves into stars or light spheres. And that is the destiny that every one of us shares. I mean, that's the foundation of Christianity, is that we too will be transfigured into a light being just like Jesus. And for my opinion, a visit to your ranch is a real good place to start getting connected with the energy of what it must be like to be one of those beings.
Exactly. And, it's a long journey. And, I myself have not...
Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, but you take it with you every lifetime.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The only thing you take with you is the wisdom gained through experience, basically. And so, all the material objects... the movie The Secret, it's getting off track a little bit, but, one of the things they're missing in The Secret, and I think John Gray, who's also a really good friend, he was the only person that actually hit on this, and he said, you don't need all the things to be happy. You can just be happy.
Right.
And we need to realize that all of that love and that joy and that bliss and happiness and everything is found within. And if you start getting hung up on outer appearances or external objects and make them a part of your self-esteem or your joy or your happiness, you're getting ready for, a rude awakening in that arena. And that's a hard one for people to understand, is that, that love and joy and acceptance and approval, everything all comes from within. But we just don't know how to access that yet. And we're so focused on the outer, which has been a long program that we've had, pretty much shoved on us from, TV and radio and everything else, that, you need all these things to be happy, and we really don't. There's nothing wrong with having things, but don't place your self-esteem or your love or joy on these things, because, they don't have emotions. They're just things.
Well said. James, we've got to take another quick break. When we come back, let's continue talking about orbs. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We'll be right back. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We're continuing with James Gilliland. Visit his website, eceti.org, and get a copy of Contact Has Begun and join this incredible journey. James, I have to tell you, I'm not a big orb guy. It just has not been something that has caught my attention, but I have to tell you, coming out there to your ranch, listening to Dr. Ledweth talking, seeing some of his amazing images of these orbs with not only concentric rings and these interesting or oddball geometries, but faces, actual faces in these orbs, and showing how these orbs could be vortexes of them into themselves that open like wormholes, which is what he showed in his presentation. I have to tell you, I was blown away.
Yeah, we're on the same track. It's amazing how both of us are experiencing the exact same thing, and we're seeing these torsion fields open up, and I think sometimes he has a little better explanation of the dynamics as far as a scientific evaluation of it. But he also has some other physicists involved with him as well that are looking into this, this phenomenon. But, the bottom line is that what we're seeing here, we can only see. People think you see with your eyes, and you really don't. You see with your brain, because you have billions of bits of information coming in, and your brain chooses what it's going to utilize.
It filters.
Yeah, it's filtered.
And
so
culture filters, too.
Build a neural net, and you have to raise your frequencies to be able to see into the higher frequencies. And that's basically what these are. These are higher frequency beings that are discarnate. They don't have physical bodies. But some of these beings are just as physical on their level as we are here, but to us they're just a light sphere or something else. But once you understand the vibrational continuum, it all starts making sense. But we have to develop the neural net to see these. We have a lot of people in the field here that are actually seeing these orbs with their eyes without even using a camera to grab them.
Wow.
And now we have the video technology. We have these infrared cameras with illuminators on them, and we're filming the orbs, actually creating columns, swirling around people, moving right through people, and right through their heart chakra and down through their crown. And you see these incredible bliss hits these people are getting. They're going, whoa, what is going on? There's plasma fields generating around these people that's lifting them up, and it's just amazing. And we've also had spontaneous healings happen here that are unexplainable, other than the person had some kind of miracle happen. So it's really interesting what we're experiencing here. We're actually documenting using technology to give us the reality that these unseen worlds do exist, and we can interact with them, and that we can get help if we initiate it.
And so, what technology do you see coming online here, or what technology would you like to see come online that could assist you in further documenting this? We're not even talking about proving anymore. It's just you're documenting this.
Yeah, well, we've got most of the technology. I'm sure there's some other stuff out there. We haven't been able to film in the ultraviolet range, which is what I'd really love to do, because a lot of these ships are in the ultraviolet range. And we have been filming in infrared and high infrared and getting that information. So there's a lot of that. But my main focus is really on the awakening and healing of humanity and the earth. And so we'd like to get more facilities here for that and bring in some of these new technologies like the superoxygenated water, where they crystallize oxygen and suspended it in water, and you drink this water and your oxygen levels just go peak, to the top. And they're making oxygen baths now with this technology, and your skin is the biggest organ on your body as far as absorbing. And, Otto Warburg back in the 20s gave us the cure for cancer, which is, to increase the blood oxygen and raise the body pH, and cancer cells can't exist, and we've had that cure forever. So there's a lot of these technologies and formulas and things of that nature, and Rife technology, and I'd like to create a full-service healing center where we're working body, mind, and spirit, and helping people physically, and then also helping them mentally and emotionally clear the old wounds and traumas from the past, and then give them techniques to make their own personal God connection.
Well, I mean, I live in the city, and it was just nice to get out and be that close to nature, even if only for a weekend. You've got the roaring White Salmon River right nearby, the spectacular beauty of Mount Adams. The whole area is just a giant playground if you're looking for rough and primitive country, just gorgeous countryside.
Mm-hmm.
James,
and that's the beauty of this place, is that nature doesn't judge you. She doesn't care what you're wearing or and when you get out in nature, is your best place to find the mirror, that's going to mirror back to you, outside of social consciousness, which is always pressing on people to, wear all the right clothes and drink the right beer and drive the right car and live in the big house and all the other stuff. You really need to drop all that and just get out into nature and stop that nagging survival chatter, in the back of your mind, and move up in frequency so you can make these connections.
Exactly. Well said. Earlier, you mentioned something that was really intriguing. I want to come back to that, and that's the subject of landings. You mentioned landings at the ranch?
Yeah, we've had, in the very beginning, we had landings right in the field here, but they said that's not going to happen anymore, because once I go public, they said we're going to have a lot of problems with that. And
would you say you're public now, or are you just going public? I know you appear on Coast to Coast pretty frequently, and you do the UFO conferences. Is that what you mean by public, or is there more public
no, we've
to
gone
come?
very, very public with this, and now there's another huge boost going on, because Robbie Williams was just here, and Above Top Secret is just blasting this all over the internet, and seems like other stations are picking it up. But we've had ABC come out here and Fox News air it, and
A&E was there recently.
Yeah, A&E just came here and they filmed an episode, and we actually had the sound of the ship coming in. They appeared exactly on cue, right at the time we said they would appear, and in the exact location with their cameras rolling. So I don't know how much of this they're going to use, because like a lot of Hollywood productions or whatever, they have to keep the suspense going and everything. But they have so much evidence right now to nail this down as a real event. But we don't know how much they're going to use because there's some skepticism there and in certain areas.
Well, I'm sure that as this ramps up, and I have no doubt that it will, that your place will continue to be a magnet for people wanting to not just raise their frequency, but to really connect with all that is. I mean, that's what you're really offering there. And I have to ask you, James, why you?
Good question. I always tell people I like to be referred as nobody, because there's nobody to defend and nobody to argue with, and we're just here to share, and assist in the awakening and healing process.
Well, that's what's so great about you, James. Yeah, it really comes through when you're up there. You're a wonderful host. You make people feel so welcome, but at the same time, you're saying, hey, here it is. This is the field. Look up in the sky, and you're on your own. We'll help you interpret, but we're not trying to tell you that this is what you're going to see, feel, or otherwise experience. You're going to see it for yourself, and it's all going to kind of be revealed to you at whatever level is appropriate for you.
Yeah, we help people understand their own experiences sometimes. It will help them just move along in their own journey. But there is no guru here. There's nobody here that that people are looking up to or anything else. We don't allow that, and we keep bending people inward, to make their own personal connection. And not just, if you are going to focus on making your own personal God connection, guess what? You're going to start connecting with all kinds of things you never knew existed along the way. So you might as well get ready for it because, keep a pure intent and open mind and loving heart because you're going to see all kinds of things along the way.
Yeah, well, James, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. I'm really glad we had an opportunity to have you on Dreamland to tell everybody about what's going on at your place. And I hope our listeners will go to your site, eceti.org, and take a look at some of the footage and hopefully come up and visit you.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough and Whitley for making this information available and you for having the courage to come up and experience it yourself and having the consciousness to really understand what you're experiencing.
Well, I caught a little bit of flack from some people saying, well, now you've kind of crossed the line, you're experiencing this stuff and everything, and I admit it, I'm a beamer now. I was beamed. I got the pulse. I got the bliss head. I have to, that happened. It's true, and I want everybody to have an opportunity to feel that kind of joy and that just excitement. It's what it's all about. Oh, yeah.
Johnny had a hard time with this because he's very critical.
Johnny Anonymous?
Yeah, and we had all the NASA sites up. We had everything, to either disprove or prove this thing, and these things started coming in and powering up, and there's nothing on NASA's site overhead, and we had almost a 3-hour period. I think we saw something like 35 objects up there doing all kinds of maneuvers and powering up that weren't.
And NASA's saying no space station, no satellites,
exactly.
No space shuttle, nothing.
Yeah, and these aren't meteorites. These things are stopping, they're turning, making right-angle turns, and they're interacting with the people on the ground, which shows intelligence. And they're coming exactly when they say they are. When the big power-ups come, they give us pre-knowledge.
Wow. Well, James, once again, thank you so much for your service to everybody on the path and for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. Next up, Linda Moulton Howe.
And now we turn to Linda Moulton Howe with an extraordinary report this week about an extremely ultra-high strangeness event that took place just recently in Pennsylvania. Folks, they are getting closer and closer every day. And one of the ways you find out what's really happening, what the real facts are, is you go to Linda Moulton Howe's earthfiles.com. She is our Emmy Award-winning science reporter on Dreamland, and we are so proud to have had her with us from the very beginning. She's been part of Dreamland longer than I have at this point, and I've been around for 10 years. So here she is from Albuquerque, Emmy Award-winning Earth Files editor, Linda Moulton Howe.
Thanks, Whitley. That's right. It went back to Art Bell before we started Dreamland Online. Well, in both of the Dreamlands with Art and with you, I have been trying to bring to audiences what is really happening around us that's not being reported on the 6 o'clock news. And Western Pennsylvania has long been haunted by the mysterious phenomena of Bigfoot, large black panthers, unidentified aerial craft in the skies, and non-human beings on the ground, including most recently a lime green glowing humanoid. Early Saturday morning, October 4th, 2008, two hunters were in the Clarion River Lake Forest region of Elk County, Pennsylvania, about 60 miles northwest of State College. The sun was not up. One hunter had a hat light on, and the other hunter had a mini mag light. And out of the darkness ahead of them appeared two greenish-blue round lights. Over the next 5 minutes, the hunters were stunned by what happened. Eventually, their story reached Stan Gordon, who has lived in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, southeast of Pittsburgh, since his birth there in 1950. By age 10, Stan was fascinated by UFO sightings in his western Pennsylvania region that kept being reported through the 1960s and that 1973 to 1974 Pennsylvania UFO wave, which is one of the biggest in United States history. Stan Gordon's professional work is selling advanced consumer electronics, but his passion has always been investigating UFO reports in Pennsylvania. In his early 20s, Stan Gordon organized UFO study groups, became the state director for the Mutual UFO Network, and the main investigator on the famous December 9, 1965 crash of an unidentified object near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Stan says there has been an increase in UFO and other Pennsylvania high strangeness reports in 2008, and this most recent October 4th encounter by two hunters is one of the most dramatic.
About 4:45 that morning, it had been raining in the area. These two hunters were going out into the wooded area. As they started walking further into the woods, they began to hear a coyote howling. And it wasn't long after that that they said they began to hear coyotes howling from all around that general wooded area. They were making a tremendous amount of noise with the howling. And in fact, two men said they had some trouble apparently even communicating at times because it was so loud. The one man told me, he said, I've never heard so many coyotes howling like that ever. And about 150 to 200 yards ahead, on the other side of the field, they see these two dim glowing lights. It was described to me by the witnesses about the size of a baseball. They're about 2 feet apart. They're about 15 feet off the ground. And they're giving off a glow, which he said was similar like to the indigo color off of a watch, more of a greenish color. And they thought, well, maybe some hunters. They didn't see any other signs of any hunters, didn't see any vehicles around when they went in, but they thought that's what it might be. So they shut their lights off. They didn't have very good lighting with them. I mean, basically, the one fellow had a hat light on, the other had a mini mag light, so they didn't have a lot of lighting with them. So they see these two lights, and they shut their lights off when they now see like a beam from a flashlight flashing back and forth between the tree line. Once again, they're thinking, well, maybe there's a hunter there. They're continuing to walk, and then within a few minutes of seeing that single beam, all of a sudden appears multiple, about 10 individual beams of light that just suddenly appear. And they're flashing around, and they seem to be originating from the same point in that area of the woods. And what's kind of unusual is that it didn't give them the impression that somebody was walking around as though trying to find their path through the woods. It wasn't like somebody was moving around carrying something. These beams are about 10 feet off the ground. They're projected parallel with the ground, and they're straight out projecting from the original point. The one friend said, how many are there? Because it was odd to be so many coming out of nowhere. And at that point, they were a little confused as to what you're watching. From one particular area of the woods, all these beams of light were emanating. They weren't all coming out from different areas along the woods. They were all coming from that particular point and shining outwards. As they're watching these beams of light, all of a sudden their attention is drawn to what appears to be a glowing human-like figure that appears right in the area of where those beams had originated from. The one fellow mentioned that it seemed as though one of these beams actually seemed to lead this glowing figure out into the field. The figure moved out about 20 feet into this field of grass. Grass is about 6 inches tall. And as they're watching this thing moving pretty steadily, pretty quick, all of a sudden, all those other beams of light in the woods suddenly vanished. What was described to me was that this being looks like the silhouette of a person, but completely glowing. And the witness told me, he said, the best way to describe it is that glow-in-the-dark paint, and you put it all over your body. He said that's the best way to try to describe what this thing looked like. He said it was about 3 feet tall, he estimated. The arms were hanging down to the side, but they appeared to be longer than that of a human being. The legs were not very clear. He said the glowing around this entity was kind of blocking out the shape, so it was a little hard to see. And he said that the coloring was like a light green lime color. And it's moving, he said, from the way they were moving, they were walking through the woods at a pretty good pace. He said, from what they could tell, the way this thing was moving, it was moving about twice as fast as they were, and it gave the impression that it was actually gliding rather than walking, gliding across the surface, and there was no sound that they could tell. Now, at that point, they were both apparently pretty shook up, and the one witness told me at that point he was becoming a little nervous, not sure what's going on, and maybe as a reaction, he began to whistle out loud. And when he whistled, he said, that creature, which was moving steadily across the field, just suddenly stopped abruptly, like stopping on a dime. And he said it remained motionless for about 30 seconds, then it began to move again about 20 feet deeper into the field, and then suddenly, right at that point, it just vanished from sight, disappeared, and they did not see it again. And interestingly, he said about 2 minutes later, the object in the field vanished, all the coyotes stopped howling. They had been howling the whole time. Total experience about 5 minutes. I believe he told me it was around 2.5, 3 minutes that he believed he observed this glowing figure. And that's basically it. He did tell me that later that day, as they kept discussing this thing, trying to figure out what they had seen, they went back to the location to search for any footprints or any evidence and found nothing. And they were very reluctant to tell anybody. Of course, the one fellow told me he had told a couple of people close to him, and of course, they were making fun of him, so he said he just kept his mouth shut.
Have you ever had a case in which there was a humanoid figure that appeared to glow a lime green and float over the ground?
I know there have been other reports. I know I've had instances of even entities in people's homes that floated. In some cases, they could not see the legs, but they were able to float around in the house. And I can't say in all those cases they glowed, but I have heard similar reports that's going back many years.
The agitation of animals, such as coyotes, howling loudly, and other animals that are disturbed when these strange lights and sometimes craft or entities are around, has been part of the UFO phenomenon for more than a century of reports.
Oh, yeah. It's been very prominent in many of the Bigfoot cases, especially during that wave of sightings in 73 and 74. And many of those sightings we had with Bigfoot, they were very close range. A lot of them, in fact, were daylight sightings, sometimes multiple creature reports, quite often multiple witness reports, a lot of them out in farm country in Pennsylvania. And in a lot of the reports, these large, normally vicious dogs, which should have been barking, going crazy, when these things were around, they were hiding back into their pens. They wouldn't bark. They wouldn't move. Sometimes for days later, they wouldn't even eat properly. And that's something that I witnessed myself. Police officers who worked on some cases back then reported that to us. And that's something that's very significant. People can be fooled, but the animals cannot.
Lighting has been reported off and on over at least half a century, and it implies that whatever we're dealing with, some of these entities, assuming it's a technology, they have the technology to literally float above the ground.
Yes, and that's something not just here in Pennsylvania, but we've heard that historically from around the country and around the world. It was August 3rd of 2000, around 10 p.m. This was outside of Uniontown, Pennsylvania, where there were 5 witnesses, and these people described seeing a being that they described as about 5 feet tall, human-like again, very long, slender extremities, It was carrying like a brown staff about 5 feet long. They observed it from distance about 250 feet away, and there was no apparent ground disturbance, but they said this thing appeared to be gliding about 6 inches above the ground. And they all got a pretty good look at it, and they were all pretty shook up. This would have been Fayette County, which has a long history of all kind of phenomena. One of the areas in Pennsylvania which has recurring reports of all kind of phenomena is along the Chestnut Ridge. And that mountain ridge runs from Preston County, West Virginia, through Westmoreland, Fayette, and Indiana County in southwest Pennsylvania. And year after year, we hear reports of strange animal sightings, UFOs. We have explained booms and sounds along the ridge at times, and just all kind of strange things that have been reported. I receive reports of UFO sightings every year, all year round. In recent weeks, we've had a lot of reports of the bright planet Jupiter in the sky. But we've had some very interesting other reports that seem pretty significant in recent weeks and months. This August 12th sighting, this was a person who lives, again, between Greensburg and Youngwood. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. The person just getting ready to go to bed notices this bright light shining in the window. Goes over to look out to observe what was described as like 2 huge headlights side by side, kind of giving off a yellow cast. But it was right across the road at a neighbor's house, very low, right above the ground. So the observer's first impression was that they were looking at a helicopter, but first of all, there's absolutely no sound. They're looking for rotor blades. It's close enough to see. There's no rotor blades. And after several minutes, these lights rose up very slowly and began to move off into the sky over the trees. And then we had a number of reports by independent people on early morning hours of September the 5th. And we had reports came in from Allegheny and Westmoreland County. The 12:30 in the morning, the witness that first observed in the sky in the distance what looked like some type of fire in the sky above the tree line, which later I received another report from another area describing something similar. And then person observed this object that came in the western sky. It was round, glowing white, had flashing blue and red lights at the bottom. And as they watched it, it suddenly vanished like somebody just turning off a power switch.
Right.
And then a short time later, a second object appeared to the south. This thing was larger than the other. It appeared to be football-shaped, and it moved quite fast, and then suddenly began to drop closer to the ground in the distance. With binoculars, they could see this was a solid, perfectly round, glowing white object with glowing red rectangular lights that did not flash and were evenly spaced around the outside perimeter. Now, interestingly, at almost the same time, I received a report from a driver in the South Park area of Pittsburgh in Allegheny County, when all of a sudden he caught these bright lights up at the top corner of his windshield. And whatever they were probably no more than 100 feet above his vehicle. And he said these bright lights were evenly spaced. He said the best way to try to describe it is if you took a piece of standard typing paper and put a large light at each corner, he said that'd be the best way to mimic what he saw. And the lights moved right in front of him, right over the vehicle. He said they were about 3 feet in diameter. They did not blink, no sound. He thought at first it was a helicopter, put the window down, put his head out. There was absolutely no sound. And he saw the lights go across. He said he estimated these lights were apparently attached to an object about 20 feet wide, about 50 feet long, and completely silent again. And he said at some point it made a sharp bank and then accelerated into the sky above the trees. And then at 2:50 in the morning from outside of Jeanette, PA, this is here in Westmoreland County again, another witness reported seeing this large orange ball of light moving quite slowly. It was a very clear morning. He said he estimated it was maybe about 1,000 feet high, but of course it's hard to estimate, moving east or west, but it seemed to be moving so slowly, almost like floating in the sky. And he described it similar as to another witness said, as he watched this thing, it just suddenly vanished right in front of his eyes like somebody shutting off a switch.
And all of this was September 5th.
That's correct.
You have been following the unidentified flying object and related high strangeness phenomena for 49 years, since you were 10 years old. Today, in October of 2008, what is your own personal feeling now about the source of the craft, the entities, and what is going on between non-human entities and Earth life?
My feeling on the UFO phenomena is after you eliminate all the IFOs, all the cases that you can explain away, there's still that percentage of cases you cannot easily dismiss. And my feeling has been for quite a while now that there's no one origin for these unexplained phenomena. I think it's possible that at least a small number of these might well be extraterrestrial spacecraft. Some of these could be unknown natural phenomena. And some of these could be time travelers, could be interdimensional. But again, we have a lot of cases over the years we've investigated where an object, a solid craft, sometimes daylight, where they physically changed form to a completely different form, or it appeared and disappeared. Most people, when they talk about UFOs, are talking about these very large cylindrical objects, dome-shaped objects, the typical flying saucer, cigar-shaped things, rectangular objects, and they think they're all 20, 30, 100 feet, hundreds of feet in length. But we've had many cases of these very small spherical objects, a few inches to a foot in diameter, maybe as big as a basketball in diameter. And I've had cases of these things coming into people's homes and flying around. I've had cases of people having windows down, going inside of cars and floating around. There was a really interesting case years ago, and a woman reported that one of these small spheres came into her kitchen and was floating around. She got a broom, she smacked it, and she said it split in two. The two separate spherical objects, they floated around, went back out the window, and disappeared.
And Willie, I wonder what your own perception is about whether a glowing humanoid like this one, this lime green, does that automatically mean that it's a technology like a hologram, or could it be something that is biological and that this glowing feature functions as some kind of protection? What do you think?
Well, Linda, I have experience with this, both anecdotal from other people who have seen these things, and also my own experience. I have memories of seeing this same lime green glow in the woods near my cabin in upstate New York on numbers of occasions, but I never saw it in the shape of a humanoid. I could see it off in the woods or in the through brush, but not so clearly that I could see that there was a figure associated with it. But that lime green color was very distinctive, and also there's a pretty well-known abductee, Karina Sables from British Columbia, who had a conscious close encounter I guess 3 or 4 years ago, in which she was getting out of her car to go stargazing with a friend in the night. And suddenly she saw these two big eyes glowing lime green in color coming out of the brush in front of her. And the next thing they knew, they were waking up from a period of 45 minutes of missing time. And so those are just two instances, and I can't put my finger on others, but that lime green glow and figures that glow lime green are a commonplace in the experience. And I have a feeling that quite frankly, we don't know what we're looking at when we see this. Whether it's a projection, and of course the green color, you think it might be a projection, and then you think to yourself, well, what's that got to do with the lime green color of the eyes? I just don't know. It could even be a color that does something to the human brain, a form of mind control.
Well, I know that very specific, some people say fluorescent chartreuse green or lime green. If you cut open a lime, the inside is lighter than the skin of a lime, which is a darker green, so it depends on which part of the lime. But I think we all generally can relate to those shades that a lime is, and the fact that the lime is compared to the fog on the ground. People have said it looks like lime green fluorescent fog.
And that's what I could have seen.
And there have been descriptions of large triangles in the sky, long and thin. I had a man send me a drawing, and he said that he had a hard time finding chalk that could give me the fluorescent lime green glow that he saw. And since this comes up, and lime green is not a light color, meaning a color from lights, that the human population uses on this planet. You think about it, there really are not lime green lights. Aviation has always been in red, blue, and whites. Our cities don't have lime green lights in them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a color that you see very much of in human life, and Also, the other thing about it is that the iridescence of it. But, I also want to talk a little bit about that area of Pennsylvania, because that's not far from where the Todd Seas case took place in Point Mountain, a case which I believe you attempted to investigate.
Yes, that was Sunbury, Pennsylvania, back on August 2nd, 2002. Hard to believe, 6 years ago already. And that is a remarkable case. This was a husband. He was 39 years old. He had said goodbye to his wife and his 2 kids in the morning just to go off on a half-day trip. He wanted to look for deer hunting sites. And he had a 4-wheel drive truck, and he headed for the top of what's called Montour Ridge outside of Sunbury, which is in Northumberland County. And by the afternoon later, he had not shown up, and eventually his wife called the police, and there was a search party of at least a couple hundred people who went out looking, and this is where it really gets actually creepy. It took a long time in terms of searching for someone who was in a geographic area that should have been not that difficult to look, and they went up on the ridge. They went all over the place, but where did they find his body? It was not far from the house, and the wife insists that she and her kids and neighbors had gone all around the whole area of their house. They had been looking everywhere. And the man was found, and this is according to people who saw, apparently, a detective that I've interviewed, who saw the photos, but the problem is this has never been verified by the police. In fact, you can't get the police to talk to you about the Todd Seas case.
No, you attempted to.
I tried. I tried very hard. I tried very hard soon after it was reported, and I tried a couple of years later with Wayne Gracie. He was an attorney. He was Pennsylvania State Director for MUFON at the time, and he himself, with his background and connections to police, tried to get hard evidence, and I talked to him about this, and he said, this is a quote from Wayne Gracie, there were reports that when his body was found, he was either naked or had just some underclothes on. There were also different reports that parts of his body were emaciated or in some sort of damaged condition. People told me that his wife was not allowed to see his body, and that another unusual part was that the 4-wheel drive area up onto that ridge is very rough, very hard, even for the 4-wheel drive. And they found the 4-wheel drive up near the top of Montour Ridge, which is exactly where he told his wife he was going to go. But the body was down near the house. This remains one of the strangest. In fact, I know that it was only about 140 yards from the house, and the wife was shocked. She's never talked to anybody to this day. And another thing that's really important about this is that there were reports that a farmer that morning of August 2nd, 2002, said that he saw a silver disc in the sky with a beam coming down from the disc. And people have said, and the farmer said that it looked like a human body rising in this beam. Well, that is why the Todd Seas case went into the UFO phenomenon mystery, because could the farmer have been describing exactly what he saw? Could the body rising in this beam of light that we know law enforcement has had so many reports about animals rising in beams of light in the mutilation phenomenon, and if the disc and the beam of light in the farmer's report are accurate, does it mean that Todd Seas was kept during that entire time that everybody was looking until some strange, unspecified moment when his body was returned nearly nude to only 140 yards from the house where everybody had already searched? It is truly one of the highest strangeness cases in the long history of high strangeness in Pennsylvania.
Indeed. And it's, interestingly enough, my cabin in New York was about 50 or 60 miles north of those areas, and between my cabin and those areas was the area of Middletown, New York, which was a place where there was just constant UFO sightings. It had been for years before we even moved up there, even knew about it. So it's an area of the world where some unusual things certainly happen, Linda, and and they're still happening. And I've recently met with Jaime Maussan and gotten some extraordinary UFO video from other places, which is clearly authentic. This is not some kind of YouTube junk at all. And they're moving very slowly. And oddly enough, next week we'll know whether or not they actually showed up on October the 14th. And I have to tell you folks, I have a hat here. It's ready to be eaten. And you can be assured, choking it down on the 15th, assuming if the aliens have showed up that they have left me long enough to my own devices to do it. But
do you think that there's a high probability that this was one of the Internet's better hoaxes?
I don't know if it's a hoax or not. The people involved in it may be sincere, but Linda, I have heard this story over and over and over again. The only thing I can say is, one day it's probably going to turn out to be true, but whether or not it'll be the 14th, who knows?
Right.
It's a nice hat.
Well, I hope, I'm assuming you'd have to eat it because you have said you're not counting on UFOs to appear on October 14th.
That is my statement, is I will eat the hat if they come in such a way that the world can no longer deny that they are real on October the 14th. On October the 15th, I will eat the hat.
Well, I would wager that you don't have to eat the hat.
Except knowing the Greys like I do, they might show up just to make me eat it. Linda Moulton Howe, thank you for a really fascinating journey into the world of science fact that others simply will not report. Unique in the world. Linda Moulton Howe, earthfiles.com. Next week on Dreamland, do not miss. John Hogue is back.
Come all the way down and go right through the earth.
Incredible. I want to talk more about the orbs, and especially in connection with your good friend Dr. Michal Ledwith in a later segment. But let's just kind of get back to what it's like, what it must have been like for Johnny Anonymous from Above Top Secret to come to the ranch. I mean, you go out into the field behind your home. You're about 17 miles from Mount Adams. This area, I mean, as you tell us when we arrive, the presence of UFOs in this part of Washington State stretches back to ancient history. Talk about that for a moment.
Oh, it does. The Native Americans have a lot of legends about a group. There's a crystalline city underneath the mountain where some very advanced human beings that look, just like us. You wouldn't tell any difference between them and us, other than at night their eyes actually glow. They have a light coming out of their eyes, but there's a long history of them taking their sick or their elderly or their wounded up there to this area. They would meet with the people. They would take them into the interior, and they would come out, a day or two later with completely mended bones and healed. So there was an ongoing opening there for quite some time, and then they had to close that down because we were getting way too aggressive and primitive, and our technology was going far beyond our spirituality. So they broke that off. But Kenneth Arnold actually coined the word flying saucers, and he lost sight of the ships when they descended on the western slopes of Mount Adams, which is actually 13 miles away from us.
Excuse me.
Yeah, but it's right in our front yard, as you've seen.
Kenneth Arnold first saw the flying discs over Mount Rainier and followed them to nearby Mount Adams, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared. They landed on the western slopes or went down on the western slopes, and then he lost them, which is our front yard. That's right where we're looking. But there's a long history of tribal police, regular police, forest rangers, the fire tower spotters, Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Did an investigation here. David Akers, Bill Vogel, Greg Long wrote a book, examining the Earth light theory. They're all trying to say, some of them are trying to say these are just Earth lights or piezoelectric, discharges. And, these are definitely not Earth lights because they're intelligent. They interact with people. They've seen beings. They've had very tall beings appear to people. Just about everything is going on up there, and so there's no way you could dismiss this as just a basic natural Earth-light phenomena.
No, and it's reminiscent. I was recently in Scotland. I went to another crystal mountain called Schiehallion, where the local history and the local legend says that this is an inner Earth opening, and it seems there are many places around this planet that share this common theme, and the commonality of it, and the extraordinary accomplishments of the people that are said to live there, the abilities. They're always said to be an advanced race with healing abilities, that the mountain is a connection to either an inner Earth world or perhaps a portal to other dimensions. It just seems that our planet has many of these locations, and you seem to be sort of the custodian of one of them.
Yeah, it seems that way. And what's really sad, too, is we could have that same experience here on the Earth. We have incredible healing technologies right now. We have fuelless energy on the planet. We could totally restore the planet and end disease and make all this available. But, unfortunately, we have, the leadership of this planet is pretty whacked out, to say it lightly. We've got
that's
the
being
war industry.
Quite polite, yeah.
Yeah, we have the war industry and the pharmaceutical industry and the oil industry running things right now, and they're totally against fuelless energy and the end of disease and peace. Basically. So all of the things that are necessary, for a healthy society and environment are being hijacked by just a small group of people, and until people wake up to that fact, we won't be able to join the rest of the universe in peace and end disease and have the clean environment. And that's the main mission, is to let people know they actually do have a choice.
James, we're up against our first break. When we come back, I want to talk for a moment about how you were drawn to Mount Adams. This is William Henry. This is Dreamland. We'll be right back.
This is a special announcement. I don't want anyone to miss next week's Dreamland, because we're doing a Dreamland on the economy, and there isn't anyone in the world.
From Nashville, this is William Henry. This is Dreamland. Welcome, everyone. Our guest today, James Gilliland, is an author, teacher, ufologist, spiritual counselor, energetic healer, and the founder of the Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence Organization, or ESETI for short. James says his sanctuary near Mount Adams in Trout Lake, Washington, just north of Portland, is at an opening to a dimensional portal where extraterrestrial ships travel to and from Earth almost nightly. It's a gathering place. Think Men in Black 2 meets Stargate. His evidence is overwhelming. The photos, over 11 hours of video, hundreds of eyewitnesses, including astrophysicists, scientists, aeronautic engineers, Air Force commercial and private pilots, and employees in the aviation industry. In other words, those who know what they're looking at in the friendly skies have witnessed UFOs, unidentified flying objects at James's ranch. Just go to YouTube and type in ECETI, and you'll see a whole bunch of this footage. I've been to James's ranch, and I've seen the ships, and I've independently encountered the phenomena called the bliss hit, possibly a pulse from one of those ships, and I know that as dazzling as my experience was to me, it's nothing compared to what others have experienced. And you're invited to visit any time you like, and I encourage you to go there for yourself to check it out. Till then, get a copy of the newly released DVD, Contact Has Begun, produced by Michael Knight. It tells James Gilliland's story with quality, heart, and depth, and it's available at contacthasbegun.com or eceti.org. Here today to talk with us about Contact and his role in it and the latest amazing goings-on at his ranch is James Gilliland. James, welcome to Dreamland.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, really glad you're here. James, there's so much to talk about. I'd like to begin first by giving you props for what you've accomplished at your ranch, the Sattva Sanctuary. It's truly an oasis in the stars.
Oh, thank you.
And I know
I'm glad you had a chance to experience it. Now you can do an interview from a experiential basis versus just, talking off the cuff,
Yeah, exactly. And talking about, having experience in some of these things. Like you, I invite people to my hometown of Nashville, and when I have an event like what happens at your place, people come from, 16, 19, 20 states or more, and it's a happening. And I show people why I think Nashville is another portal on the stairway to heaven. Like we've got copies of 2 healing temples from the ancient world here, the Parthenon and a place I call Stargate Park. And when I take people there, they get something like the bliss hit at your place. And so when I came to your ranch on the 4th of July, I saw a lot of myself and what I was trying to do in Nashville with what you're doing there. And you're proud of your home, your family's involved, and they're all very cool, incredible people. And you're really about sharing an extraordinary experience with people and awakening them. And just one comment, I had a person tell me once that Nashville is a portal because I made it so. And I really like that word made because that's a police term for identify. I identified what's going on in Nashville, and similarly, you've made or identified something incredible about your home near Mount Adams. And so on this police term theme, let's talk first, if you don't mind, James, about those 11-plus hours of video that you have of these ships over your ranch. Tell us about what is in that footage.
Well, I think there's at least 11 hours up on YouTube or more, but we actually have hundreds of hours of footage. And
let's just stop just for a second, James. Hundreds of hours of footage. What's the duration, the typical duration of a typical ship flying by that you have footage of?
Sometimes we only have just probably, the count of 10 to get one. When they come in and they power up and they sit there for a minute and then take off, zip off. We only have a matter of maybe 10 seconds to get some of those, the really big ones. But the other ones we have going from horizon to horizon. And, some do it very slowly and some do it so fast that we've had, mathematicians figure it out as close as they can get. And these things are moving, 750,000 miles an hour plus.
Incredible.
So, our fastest satellites are going around 18 to 20-something thousand miles an hour, and these things are so far beyond anything that is known, you might say. So they definitely fall in the unknown or the UFO category.
So when you're talking hundreds of hours of video of events that last anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute, you've got thousands of separate events that you've documented.
Oh, yeah. We have landings that were 45-minute events where they actually landed on the mountain and morphed into 3 to 4 ships and then back to 1 again. And we had that happen on several occasions. And
you have that on tape, too.
Yeah. Above Top Secret just came here, and they did a major investigation, and they actually brought Robbie Williams with them.
Now, who's Above Top Secret?
Now, that's another group. They're an investigative group. And
skeptical, or are they traditionally open-minded about it?
Well, actually, they are very, you might say, critical, and very critical of a lot of the places and a lot of the claims being made by others. So they're extremely discerning, and actually Johnny was one of the biggest debunkers of orbs out there until he came to the ranch, and now he's a major proponent of them because we have the orbs on video actually interacting with people. Undeniable footage. These things are flying against the wind. They're making changes, stopping, hovering over groups, and we just put up some miraculous footage recently. We have more now where we had a bunch of kids out in the field just laughing, having a good time, and just, orbs are coming everywhere, and they come flying by, and they're these beautiful light spheres, and they're coming in every color imaginable, and they're definitely not dust particles or flour thrown up in the air or anything else. You can see these objects are interacting with people. They're flying against the wind. There's no possible way they could be any kind of a dust particle. And on top of that, we're filming them in basements that haven't even been open for who knows how long. They've been closed up for weeks, and you open it up and go down there and meditate for a minute, take a picture, and you have these beautiful blue orbs with faces in them, sitting right on your shoulder. So that, between that and them flying through trees with shadows of the branches on the orb shows that they have some substance, but they have the ability to move right through walls and through metal beams and cement basement walls and through trees, and it's just amazing. We watch them come from way up in space.